Thumbnails are the storefront to your YouTube business.
I'm Kris Krohn.
I'm Grant Thompson with Selfmade.
And today we're going to show you how to get those rockin' thumbnails rockin'.
Let's dive right in. The way you get a video watched on YouTube, obviously, is it pops up and there has to be something that makes you want to click on it. I mean, when a video comes up for you, Kris, what helps determine whether or not you actually want to watch that video?
Just the thumbnail. What's the title of it? What's the thumbnail? And does it honestly pull me in and look intriguing enough to want to click on it?
If you spent $1 million making the most fantastic video the world has ever seen, but nobody clicks on it, then it's not going to do you any good.
Well, by the way, I just got to say, have you actually ever been to a site where people are like selling cars, and it's like no picture available, or you're looking at real estate and there's like no picture available? I don't know about you, but I just skip it.
Yeah.
Like, imagine having no thumbnail and competing against someone else that actually put a little bit of time, effort, and attention into that. It's going to be a world of a difference.
Yes, we have over 1 billion hours of YouTube being consumed every day. So if you don't have something that immediately grabs someone's attention, they're going to skip on to the next thing. You got to make yourself relevant. So we're going to give you a few tips and tricks to make some excellent clickable thumbnails.
I'm excited for this because I've made hundreds of thumbnails, or Nate has, and I'm really excited to see what your specific tips are based on what's trending, what's popular, and what are people really liking today.
Well, I don't really have it figured out because our views are dropping. I did try clickbait thumbnails, and that actually did pretty well for a while, but then I sacrificed my reputation for it. So let's get started talking about clickability, because really what it comes down to is getting people to click on your video. So what makes it clickable? Now, I do have to say right off the bat, I did go to a conference or a seminar where they emphasized how important it was to have clickable thumbnails. And so about 8 months ago, I went through a phase where I dressed my thumbnails up. I made them a little bit brighter, a little bit more animated, because a lot of the videos that were getting clicked and had huge views had that style of video. So I started trying that on my channel, but the feedback I got from a lot of people was very negative.
Really?
I've always been known as an upfront, honest guy. I put everything on the table. And so when I started doctoring my thumbnails to look more clickbaity, I started getting a lot of kickback because people, I think they felt like it violated my integrity.
Can you actually tell us what you mean by clickbait?
Yeah, clickbait is often it's actually out of context nowadays, but what true clickbait is you put up a picture of something that somebody is going to click on. You know, maybe it's a nice red Ferrari. You click on that video and there's nothing in the video about a Ferrari whatsoever. That's like a bait and switch. It's a clickbait.
And you weren't doing that, but that's now the way that term has really been morphed into, I made my thumbnail look so prestigious or nice or glam.
I think clickbait, the essence of it is you're overselling and then really under-delivering. You're getting people to come in the door to watch your video, but then there's just no substance. And so they left feeling empty. Now, in my videos, what I always try to do is deliver a lot of great content. I was just trying to get people to click. And the interesting thing was, I did notice the click rates went way up. You know, I was getting double the views on a lot of my videos. But I had to ask myself, was that worth the integrity drop? Because as a result, to this day, I still have people who talk negatively against me because they feel like I became the king of clickbait. Wow. So that's one thing to consider, is like, as you're dressing up your thumbnails, how do you stay true to yourself?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do in our thumbnails is, we'll usually, it's interesting, when we're actually shooting a video, we'll actually intentionally try to figure out a really fun way to communicate whatever the message is. Like, there was this one video that I did with my wife and I, and talking about communication styles, and you know, one of the things that was funny is she rolled up a piece of paper like a trumpet and she was blasting something in my ear, and I was just, so I was just kind of being a little bit cheesy, a little bit fun. If people kind of know my style in my video, I can totally be a big nerd. And we nerd out a little bit on some of our thumbnails, and I think Nate goes out of his way. That's my producer. He'll actually, I think, if you take a video of yourself and it's amazing how you can pause in the middle of saying something and look so unattractive. And Nate really has this ability to find those moments. He's like, hey Kris, look at what I loaded up on your YouTube page. And I'm like, wow, you made me look even dorkier than I think I might really be in life.
That's right. So, and along that note, one of the things that we use in our video production process is an intentional thumbnail. So at some point during the process when we feel like, hey, this is the meat and potatoes of the content, this is the stuff that will sell the video, let's pause for a second. Let's take an intentional thumbnail where we're not in the middle of talking, or we could just focus on the product or get that real shot that we want. You want to think of, if you're putting a product in your eBay store, your Amazon store, what is going to be attractive that people are going to want to click on? And you want to think the same thing with your YouTube videos. Let's make an intentional thumbnail that looks good. Some of the ways that you can do that, don't give away the ending. I mean, if your video is about a question or something that's going to happen, don't show the final result in your thumbnail, because then people don't have a reason to click. You know, if your video is like what happens if you try lighting X and X mixture and you show a big green flame, they're like, oh, it burns with a green flame. No need to watch the video. So I find it's helpful to actually show the moment prior.
Yeah.
You know, the mixtures mixed together with the lighter about to ignite, so it builds a little bit of anticipation.
And I really like that, because you guys do that well in your videos. One of the things that I always like to do is make sure that you just have really good, clear, readable fonts, and something that really resonates with your brand. Because I want, by my thumbnails, I want people to come to recognize me and like, oh, that's a Limitless Wealth TV, thumbnail, or that's a self-made thumbnail. And so all of a sudden it's like I'm building some brand recognition there for individuals, but it's also very clearly communicating more about what the video is, rather than just a picture of me just standing there. My old thumbnails were like lame. It was just me talking, and it would have the words on the screen for what I was talking about, but it really wasn't showing anything in relation to what I was really going to be speaking of. And that's the biggest change that I've made, where we've really seen a big uptick in people, finding more interest in clicking on what we're doing.
Perfect. I think it's also important to size your image as large as you practically can. You got to remember the thumbnail on YouTube really is only about the size of your thumbnail. It's going to be very, very tiny. And so if you have a very large picture of nothing with, the main attraction in the center, all you're going to see is, you're not going to see anything. So if you can use some kind of editing software like Photoshop or some of the online free graphic design software to blow that up and really show the viewer what the emphasis is, that's going to make a huge difference. Also using graphics or text. If you wanted to add a red arrow or add a circle to direct attention, or even some text with a question mark, what you're doing is you're ultimately getting the viewer to ask themselves a question that's going to create suspense where they have to get the answer to. Television does this really well. The reason people binge watch Netflix, I'm sure, is because the very last thing that happens in the video is there's a cliffhanger that has to be answered.
I know. It's so good. They do such a great job making you click that next video.
So the whole goal of a title and a thumbnail is basically to create a cliffhanger that people have to click. You create a need for them to jump in there.
The other thing is to make sure that your thumbnails are large, that they're relevant, and that they are
very colorful. You want your thumbnails to pop. If you look at YouTube, you see what everybody else is doing. What little things can you do differently so that your thumbnails stand out? You're advertising to an audience that is immediate consumers. You have about 1 second to make an impression, maybe even less. At first glance, what's going to make your thumbnail pop out? So being large and being colorful is definitely going to give you that advantage. We also use templates on our videos. We have a little Photoshop border that we add to each of our thumbnails just to give it a little bit of branding. Because when a video pops up in the suggested, I want people to know this is a King of Random video. It's King of Random approved. So you'll notice our videos nowadays have a little caution bar on the top and the bottom and a little symbol in the top right.
And that's part of that branding and that recognition that we're talking about. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a video, or that's a King of Random video, so that you really want people to be able to easily recognize it and get used to it.
Yeah. Are you going to put a red border around your thumbnails? Are you going to put some branding on it? Are you going to maybe fade the edges so it kind of blends into the page? Or is there some other way you can manipulate that image to get it to pop? Really, anything that you can do to make it stand out from any other's video to get people's attention is step one. And then step two is to create some kind of a need where they feel like they need to click it. So hopefully, big, colorful, relevant, and something that formulates a question in the viewer's mind that needs to be answered.
Awesome. Hey friends, so that's our information today on how to make a thumbnail that's going to resonate. It's going to scream out. It's going to say, click me, I want to know more about it. And remember, I think the best advice to really end with is that this is your storefront. So you put all this time into making the video. You put all this time into getting it all prepped. Now you got to make sure that you have a still image that people want to click on so they can finally get to the meat and potatoes.
That's right. So happy working on your thumbnails and all the best with future clicks. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed some of these tips. These are things that we personally use. We're always constantly tweaking them, and we don't want to give the impression that we've got it figured out. It's a constant work in progress, but these are some tips that I think are universal, and your ingenuity, your creative nature is going to figure out how it's going to work for you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you, and if this video was useful for you, feel free to go ahead and share it with some of your friends and family, and share with them the other wonderful things that we're sharing with you about YouTube.